Hey, hello there. Welcome. Have you ever thought about maybe writing a book? Maybe you have aspirations of writing a novel, or there's a book that you want to get out there to help the world. Well, I've noticed that when writing my books, that there are five things that kind of rise to the top that really stink about writing. And so I'm going to share with you today my top five things that stink about writing books. All right, welcome. Well, let me just give you a little bit of context real quick. I have written three books so far: Son of the Age, Man from the North, and of course, Daughter of Two Worlds. They are the first three parts of a five-part series called the On series, and I am currently working on the second draft of book number 4, which is going to be titled Hunter from the Rift. And so for those of you who've been reading these books, Hunter from the Rift is the story of Famia, Dolnir's wife, and this adventure that she takes and all that stuff. So I don't want to give away too much, but my point is, with all of this, is that there are five things that really stink, that are very hard about writing books. Before I get started though, I just wanted to remind you that I have a link in the description below to my monthly newsletter. And also, I would love it if you subscribe to this channel and hit that little bell so that you know whenever a new video is posted. So let me just start with probably one of the worst things in the five things that really stink about writing books. And that is that writing books just takes too long. I remember when I got the inspiration to write my first book, and I just thought, I'm gonna sit at my computer and I'm gonna write for hours a day. I'm gonna get in like 5,000 words a day. I'm going to pound this book out, and when I am done with it, it's gonna be an overnight success. Well, none of that is true. Writing a book takes a long time, and you have to understand that it's actually a process. Writing a book isn't so much a project or a task as it is a process that you go from beginning to end. A lot like building a house is a process, or starting a business is a process. Writing a book is a process, and it takes a long time. And unfortunately for me, that first book took a good 5 years probably to get out. Now, subsequent books usually take me about 2 years from beginning the outline to actually releasing the thing, but they take a long time. So be patient with the process. The other thing that stinks about writing books is creativity comes and goes. We don't always feel creative. We don't always sit down at the keyboard and have all these creative, crazy ideas coming and going. I think people sometimes think that fiction writers are just this fountain of limitless creativity, and nothing could be further from the truth. The thing is if you're aware that creativity comes and goes, that it ebbs and flows, then when creativity does come, you'll capture as much creativity as possible. Now, I have, like most people, an online note-taking app, and I have a note in there when I have a book coming up, or I know that I have 1 or 2 books coming. Then I will just dump ideas into this note, and then when it comes time to outline the book, I'll go back to the note and I'll draw out all the creative ideas that I dumped in there. And then I just keep adding them as the ideas come, and I draw out of the notes when the creativity isn't there. So it's really about having a way to record the creativity when it's on and draw from it when it's off. Okay, number 3 thing that stinks, and I know that some authors out there are probably going to argue with me, because I actually know authors that love this part. This part doesn't stink for them, but editing stinks for me. No one wants to take their work, the thing that they just sort of poured their heart into for a year or however long it takes. I know some people can bang out a book in a couple months. That's not me. But nobody wants to take all of their hard work and hand it to somebody else and have them come back to them and tell them everything that's wrong with it. But good editing is going to be brutally honest. If you turn your work into an editor and they just kind of come back to you and tell you everything's great, you might want to find a different editor. So for me, for my process is after I've written the second draft, I'll actually hand it to my wife first and have her give me feedback and tell me what's confusing and tell me what just doesn't make sense and needs to change. And then after she's given me that feedback, I'll do a third draft before I hand it to an editor. And then there's this sort of back and forth until the editing process is done. And it almost takes longer than it should or that you expected it to. Okay, the number 4 thing that stinks about writing a book is that it never turns out as you imagine. All 3 of my books so far started out with maybe one particular idea in mind or certain things that I wanted to sort of accomplish through the characters and bring the characters through and certain ideas. And usually by the time I am done with the outline, I'm lucky to have some of that original idea left in the story. And so no matter what you're writing, and especially if you're writing fiction, I think one of the things that stinks is that it never really turns out that you imagine. And the last thing that stinks about writing books, again, these are all my opinion, but the last thing that stinks about writing books is the sales and marketing of books. Because if you're a writer and you finish that book, the editing's done, the cover's designed, all those things, and that book is out live to the world, what you're thinking about is writing the next book. And this process of sales and marketing, which has to be done, recruiting your launch team, getting reviews, getting the word out there, doing promotions, it takes a lot of time. And for most authors, when you stop doing those things, the sales sort of stop. And so being an author that's not James Patterson or Lee Child or John Grisham, where you have entire companies doing all that for you, if you're not one of them, then you're going to have to work quite a bit to get the word out there ad nauseum. And so that would be the 5th thing that kind of stinks about writing books. So if you're a writer and you're hearing me say these 5 things that stink about writing books, I just want to encourage you. If you're thinking about writing a book, go for it. Go for it and do it and complete it. Don't just start the book. Don't just make an outline. Don't just get halfway through a first draft, but actually complete it. Because when you write a book, and I'm going to tell you now, one of the things that I love about writing books, when you finish your book, being able to do this, hold this in your hand and go, I made this. Check this out. And someone comes back to you and they say, you know what? That story really blessed me. That story was really meaningful to me. I really saw myself in some of those characters. That makes the top 5 things that totally worth it. It makes the things that it takes too long. It takes wrestling through creativity worth it. It takes the editing. It makes it worth it. And so when you're able to do this, the top 5 things that stink really aren't so bad. And it's kind of like having a baby. I remember when my wife and I were pregnant with our first child, and all of the things, the pregnancy, the weight gain, having the baby and being kept up at night and changing diapers and all those things. Never once did either of us go, can we just send him back? It wasn't worth it. And so writing is a lot like that too. There is a lot of work. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it. But when you sit there and you're holding it, it's worth it. So that's all I've got for today. If there's something that you'd like me to make a video on, go ahead and drop it in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. But that is all I have. We'll catch you next time.